welcome. My name is Penelope Chatterton. Welcome to Awaken the Dream. My friends, I'm back again about Joel Goldsmith, and I have found a wonderful book called Living by Grace. And I always say it's the best one I've ever read, and it is. So I humbly say I am quite thrilled with the experience of reading Living by Grace, of which I think I've read it 6 times. I've taken a lot of notes, and I'm still not sure I'm going to present it right. But I humbly confess I just felt very moved by this book. And before I get rolling on the book, I want to thank Chris Bentley from infinitewaystudents.webs.com because he sent me the principles of the Infinite Way movement, and I worship them, I read them, I review them, and his website is very resourceful, as is Chris. He's open to being contacted. He is a true Infinite Way student teacher and wonderful at what he does. Thank you, Chris. You're with me in spirit today. But living by grace, Joel is always telling us we are beholders of life. We are not to seek for anything we desire. We can't have our ego involved in any of our wishes. We can't have agendas. We can't have things we want. Because living by grace, if we have all of that in the way, we're not living by grace. We are to beholders, be beholders of spirit, to live in the moment, to live with God's grace forever speaking to us. So if we have God speaking to us, and we have spiritual freedom, and we have the seed. Now friends, this seed is in all mankind. All of us are free, all of us have the divine spark. There's no one that does not have this. It's our gift. And believe it or not, as Joel says, we're all whole, complete, and perfect right now. What Jesus accomplished 2,000 years ago, overcoming death, we all can do it, and we can do it now. It is available. So that sounds like a huge topic. Let me see if I can help you how to get there. Now, Joel, in his humility, was someone that God used to reveal the infinite way. He was an instrument. He tried to find God from the earliest years when he was a Christian Scientist, a businessman. He had so much passion, and he kept receiving from within revelations. And when he began to realize how guided he was, the stepping stones kept coming to him, one at a time, as he grew and meditated and studied and wrote and gave lectures. He opened up more and more and more to consciousness. He always said success was at hand. His disciples tried to heal. They were not quite as pure in their healing ability as Jesus Christ, because he was the ultimate healer. But what they accomplished was wonderful. They could heal, they could reform, they could help folks understand themselves, they could help folks understand what sin was, that it did not exist. So that is in the Infinite Way, which is a movement founded by Joel Goldsmith, who lived from 1892 to 1964. He was an American mystic. He wrote over 30 books. He's done so many tapes. And he is one excited person. And he is working with us in spirit right now. And I want to explain that. As mystics who are trying to be beholders, of which we can be, Joel is a mystic who is working with us. He found oneness here. And he is sharing with all of us. He has not let us go as his students. But he's also working with every mystic that ever was here, whoever attained that disciplehood, that spirit that was within them, that became beholders, that didn't have agendas for themselves. I mean, Jesus, Buddha, John, Elijah, Shankara. If you Google spiritual mystics in literature everywhere, there are thousands of folks who in spirit and in private became folks that could understand and behold spirit at work, who let go of humanhood. And so to let go of humanhood is what we're here to do. Material sense has got to go. The Christ mind which is the infinite way, which is available to all of us, to all mankind, we have the Christ mind. The Christ mind is not the man, Jesus. It's not a man, it's a spirit. It's God working with you and through you. All mankind has this. Now here's the thing that's so important about the commandments. You love no other God but the one, and you love your neighbor as yourself. Now to me, this is the big love, not the little love. Now I think of the little love when I think of loving brother, sister, mother, father, husband, wife, when I think of the immediate personal love we have here. But we can easily take care of those personal loves with our service, with our gifts, with our abundance. But it's the big love. Love thy neighbor. The folks in India, the folks you don't know, where God wants you to serve mankind. That's the big L. That's where we need to go. We need to go beyond what we automatically go, where we go to immediate family. We need to think about the world. We are here. We have a debt to the world that we owe because of the divine spark. We are on assignment. So the infinite way in the second coming is about the fact that we all are part of oneness. We're part of the infinity of coming home. We lost our way with the prodigal experience. We decided we were separate. We fell for human sense, for material sense. We went for all the stories, all the mesmerisms, the hypnotisms, all the fear of death, the fear of anything, disease, sin, overindulgence, addiction. We fell for all of it, and we've taken it in, and we've thought that was real. So as Joel says, this is not the easiest trip in the world to come in and want to go home. We are on our way back to the Father's house because we have the seed, and if you're chosen by the finger of God, there is no going back. I think Joel says we are like pillars of salt if we dare try. We can't try. Once we are receivers of the finger of God, once we're on a path that works for us, for our individual consciousness, that's it. We have it, we always will, and we will never get off because we can't. We've been given an assignment, and God will performeth our works through us. He will perfect our work through us. And I need to know that, because as I frailly stand up and say, can I do this? I depend on God to help me, to speak through me. And I depend on Joel, who is one with all of his students in spirit. He never left us, he never will, like all the mystics. So here we are, we owe a debt to mankind. We need to hear the word. Now, we need to read, we need to meditate, we need to pray. All the time. Pray without ceasing, Paul said. Pray without ceasing does not mean once a day. It means all the time you can remember who you are. To rest in spirit. To wait for that still small voice. The whole principle of living by grace is we live by waiting for our assignments, our voice, our hunches, our beliefs, our intuition. It doesn't have to be words that come through us. But it doesn't get any better than that, because once you receive that and you feel that guidance moment to moment, you don't look for God to do anything for you tomorrow, because he can take care of that. You're not supposed to go there. Don't get sidetracked. Don't be so busy that you can't find a moment to rest in spirit, to rest in the Sabbath. And listen, be a beholder. The still small voice is all there is that works. It's real. It comes from a loving source. It is the seed. It's what your spiritual freedom is, which you have right this minute, as Jesus did 2,000 years ago. You have everything he had. And we have to work our way to it. Now, Joel does say, this is not easy, and few there be that find this path. So that's a comfort as well, because Joel was very humble in living by grace, and I'll explain his story a little bit. Joel fell off the path a lot. He said, once you're illumined, which is interesting, your responsibility is to be bright and alive and alert, but it's easier to fall off because it's almost like too much for you. You have to maintain it. You have to work so hard. You've got to be ready to do that. So often after you're illumined, you fall off that path and you scrape your knees and you realize you've got to keep working all the time. You don't let up. Joel says, and I appreciate this, you never have it. Don't ever think for 1 minute you got it, because he did. And as he thought he had it, a new horizon would come up to test what he thought was it. He thought his illumination was perfect. It would knock him down. So then he humbly had to go to God, and let me tell you what he had to say. I have failed. Oh, he felt like he went through the worst hell. I have failed, God. For 30 years, I have been working on trying to know God, and I have failed. I have found out that I was looking for something, and I thought that was it. Joel, I believe, was using mind. Now, he speaks about mind and the body. Mind is used by man. It is not used by God. Mind of man knows good and evil, good and bad. That has nothing to do with God energy. That is why we let go of mind. And Joel didn't realize that, but he did. He woke up to, my gosh, I was working from an ego that I didn't realize. And as he surrendered more and more and more, Spirit always comes back to speak to him so clearly. I love the way he speaks to Joel. You've got it. Now have peace and move on. You've got it. 30 years doesn't matter. Joel says some students, practitioners, students of the infinite way of any spiritual illumination can have it in 24 hours. Others take a week, a month, some take 30 years. And of course, Joel takes us to many lifetimes. Yes, many lifetimes are okay because we are the I. The I am says, I know the truth. It's the only thing that's real is love. And that's what's going to go with me. All the work I do here in this body, in this consciousness, in this human dimension, all the spiritual work I do is the only thing that I take with me. And we do live forever. Joel speaks of eternity like the seed that falls off a tree and it plants another tree and that tree plants another tree, but it's always the same tree that keeps reincarnating into another tree and another tree, and it's all the same I am. So let's say you're the tree in this lifetime and you attain a certain degree of spiritual illumination because you worked hard for it. That you will take with you. But you know what? You won't take anything from material sense with you because it's an illusion, it's finite, it's not real. So that's why I think Joel mentioned sometimes we can't think about our other lifetimes because if we weren't very evolved, because that wasn't real, there's nothing to cough up, there's nothing to remember. I think that makes a lot of sense. The only lifetime I ever remember was waking up and being in a marketplace where I heard some muttering and murmuring, and I was in another country, and I think I was in prayer. That's all that I can remember other than my illumination as a teenager of being in the light and then coming back and then falling through disease and, not mistakes, just falling. We fall. We get illnesses so we can get better. Our traumas, our separations, our illnesses, our wake-up calls for us to keep working harder. And that is important. That be okay with that. If you fall, pick yourself up. Don't beat yourself up. There is no unforgivable sin. I think churches sometimes like us to think that there is one so that they can keep us maybe under their discipline. So that's why the Infinite Way has no organization. It doesn't have a leader. We're all students because we're always learning and growing. And that makes so much sense because we got to be open to the voice. We don't know where we're going next with it. All we have to know is the still small voice is the only life that there is. Anything we want, desire. Any miracles we think we can pull off on our own, any way we can say, pat me on the back because look what I did, it's not going to be very interesting to anybody, especially you, and it's not going to fill you. So we live secretly and privately. Let me talk about that. We don't go out and hire a ballpark, Joel says, and stand up and say, guess what I know? Because unprepared minds might be embarrassed for you or walk out or it just won't make sense. Wait till people come to you. You will attract certain folks that you will make sense to. Let them come to you. Joel was invited so many times to so many places to speak, but he waited until those invitations came again and again because he wanted to be sure. He didn't want to just jump because, oh boy, it's all about, what I can do. He really needed the sincerity of folks who wanted to study mysticism. Someone once asked him, I think he said, well, would you start a school and teach mystics? He said, yeah, if I can have them for 5 years, 7 days a week, 24 hours a day, sure. So jokingly, what he was trying to say is this is a big assignment, but it's one that can be accomplished. Now, my friends, it depends on your ardor, your passion. How much do you want it? Are you willing to pray and meditate and read and study? Use all the skills that are available to you. Don't let them all go. Just use them all, even though you don't want to repeat a book to think that that's it. I mean, all the Protestant mystics, the Catholic mystics, the Mohammedans, all of them that were mystics, if they felt God, if they really felt God, that was all they needed to do. You have to feel the presence. You will know when you sink into that presence. There is an awesome, peaceful, wonderful experience of feeling cared for and loved. And that, my friends, you are totally loved and guided. So, don't look to a man, don't look to a Jesus or any disciple, any leader to be your God. You've got the Christ mind. You were given the seed. Your guide is the Christ mind, the spark. That voice is for you individually. That's the awesome, and that's the mystery of having a God that knows you that well, that knows all of us, that we all have an ability to hear what is special for what we need to hear. Of course, now the assignment I just mentioned is pray often, meditate hard and long, and pray without ceasing, daily. And the more you see miracles really happen, where stuff comes to you that you just can't believe come to you that makes so much sense. You see, grace goes before you. Let me talk about that. Grace knows everything. And I like the idea that it goes before you and it opens up the Red Sea and it knows what you need to know before you need to know it. So that is pretty nice. That's why you need to listen, because how do you know unless you be guided, unless you ask? If you have a personal problem, ask. When you're in meditation, ask. It's all waiting for you. There are answers that will come to you. It might not come that second. It might come when you're out jogging and you're especially talking to a crow. For some reason, when I'm out jogging, I get so much stuff that comes to me, or when I'm sidetracked, when I'm not thinking about meditating, stuff comes to me that makes me laugh like, oh, nice timing. But you still can't miss it if it's a concern of yours and that you are getting some information and an answer. It's mysterious. I love the fact that our God is mysterious. He speaks to all. He took his disciples to the Mount of Transfiguration because they really didn't know about the crucifixion and death. And either he brought those mystics back into the invisible, or the invisible went to the visible. Whatever he needed to prove to his disciples, he could prove that there was no death. And that's why he did go to the crucifixion. That's why he knew he was going to be okay. He knew he had to serve in that way, and he did. And he came back with his wounds showing, and yes, everyone got the message. There is no death. However, it is probably the biggest fear that we all have. And it's big because it's beyond a mystery. It's like it doesn't feel safe. We don't know what it's going to be like. But when I think of what Joel said about the tree dropping seeds and dropping another tree and another tree, just try to remember all the good work you do in loving your neighbor as yourself with a big L, taking care of the world, serve in any way, as an artist, as a writer, as a teacher, as a silent mystic, as a practitioner. It does not matter. You will be told by the finger of God where you are to serve, because God breathes through you. He gave you this body. He knows your personality. He gave it to you. You are God walking around here trying to come home to the Father's house and help folks do it because you have an assignment. We have work to do. So that is what the infinite way is. The Christ mind is the second coming We all are involved in coming home to the Father's house. We all have the spark. We all have spiritual freedom. It just requires us to face material sense. Now, every moment you're thinking, is it word or is it mesmerism? What have we got going on here? Are we really alert? Are we getting the message? Is it the word of God? Is it who we are? Or is it mesmerism? Is it spiritual sense? So that requires everything and anything that comes to us, be it a disease, be it an illness. And by the way, a practitioner or anyone can never say, look, you can't be sick, because you just can't. So deny it. You don't want information like that someone may not be ready to hear or ready to manifest the fact that, wait a minute, I'm still sick. How can you tell me I'm not sick? That's why the prepared mind has to come to you. You have to really know who to speak to so that you don't upset them, because a lot of this work is really a little mind-blowing for folks who really don't know what you're talking about. So the infinite way is a beautiful movement. It's a beautiful movement, and Joel is with us. He's with us now, and he is in spirit, and he never left us, and he's working with all the masters. And I'm touched by being involved the way I am. I'm humbled by it. I get embarrassed by it. I worry about it. I never know if I can do it right, but it seems to be my stepping stone as a student, to keep putting one foot in front of another, to make some sense out of what my life is and what I'm to do with it, to have some inner peace and some happiness. Now, Tim, I have to check the time because I'm a little confused. How much time do I have? 5 minutes. Oh, thank you. I couldn't quite figure that out. 5 minutes. If you could just give me the signal. For some reason, I'm not understanding that. All right. Sorry about that, folks. I didn't want to check out too early. The infinite way, living by grace. We are beholders. We can have no needs. We can't look for anything. We can't have options, opinions. We can only listen. And you will know, because if it doesn't come from the mind, and the mind is about good and evil, which we work with, mankind, when he separated and had the prodigal experience, took on mind. And a lot of metaphysical healers still play with the mind and say, gee, if you hammer this and hammer this, you can have a miracle, or you can have all this abundance if you just pound it with your mind. That is what Joel calls, or Jesus called, the false Christ. They will come, he said, in my name. So he tried to help us with that. Don't try and create something with your mind. Try not to create with your mind. Try to be a receiver, a listener. Prayer, in infinite way terms, prayer is listening to the still small voice. That's it. Prayer is listening to the still small voice. And communion is sitting in prayer. The Sabbath is resting in prayer. Church is a wonderful word. It's a word that says listen. It says listen. And it also can be organized. Churches do beautiful work taking care of one another, and I really honor that and appreciate that. But beware of anyone telling you that you sin or that you're bad. I think I'm down to 3 minutes, and I think I want to say that there's no unforgivable sin. God did not create you with sin or disease or any of these things. As Jesus forgave the man on the cross and the adulteress, he forgave. There's nothing we don't forgive. And I think the big hook here is, remember, the worst person you know, your neighbor that you have a problem with. In Hawaii, I think they have healing services where they all gather and say, if there's anybody you hold any grudge against, you go and apologize. You go work that out, because until you empty old bottles, can the new bottles be filled? Can you hear that voice? We all have to clean up our old bottles. So on that note, forgive anyone, no matter how hard it is. Just know the love of God can forgive that person. If you're struggling with it, ask God to do it for you. It's nice when you work in groups, when you work with energy, that you can actually do that, because it's the real love that's out there. It's the love that you are. Be a beholder. Look for nothing. Don't try and get pats on the back. Don't think a new car is going to make you happy or all the money in the world. Real happiness is knowing you're not alone and you have been created whole, complete, and perfect. And as you work the principles of the infinite way, omnipotence, omnipresence, omniscience, nothingizing, which means impersonalizing, letting go of things you think you see, that's work. Watch those war stories, change them, correct them, dissolve them, bring everyone back to who they are. It seems like a leap, but it's not as you practice. It's the best. My friends, I am getting the signal, and I appreciate you sitting with me today, and I recommend Living with Grace by Joel Goldsmith. And thank you for sharing your energy with me and Joel and all the mystics that are out there, and especially to Chris Bentley, who would love to hear from you if you have any questions about the Joel Goldsmith work. Thank you again. Talk to you again soon.